Hi there and welcome back to my channel. It is a very sunny winter Monday in my art studio, and last week I asked here on YouTube and also on my Instagram if you had any art questions for me. So I just made myself a lemongrass, calendula and rose tea. You are welcome to make yourself a tea or any drink that you want to sip while watching these. And it's pretty much just going to be me here sitting down, so you're welcome to just listen to these while you do your own thing. And in case you're new here, hi, welcome. My name is Caro. I am a Peruvian visual artist based in upstate New York in the United States. And on this channel, I share my love for art making. I make art to tell nature how much I love her. And this is a mix in between art, the process behind running my art small business, and life as a person that is always seeking to connect deeper to nature. And the plants, the fungi, are non-human teachers. So thank you for being here. The first question is, how can someone make art a full-time business and manage a stable income through that? I personally believe that nowadays there are a million different ways to make a living as an artist, and I don't subscribe to the idea that an artist needs to be a starving artist. I think that one of the main questions that I would ask myself is if you prefer to be an artist that works on commission pieces, meaning, let's say, for example, Lee Ellickson started creating artwork of portraits of pets on Etsy. So if you feel comfortable creating commission pieces for people, that is a route you can take. And if, on another hand, you prefer to work on your own projects, that might be a little bit slower to start creating an income out of it. At least that is my experience. Because of course, if someone is commissioning a specific art piece from you, that means that you are getting paid to create that specific piece of artwork. When, on the other hand, if you are working on your own project, hopefully a lot of people from day one will want to back you and buy the original or buy prints out of it. But at least in my experience, being someone that has been a full-time artist since 2019 and a part-time artist with tons of different jobs for the longest time in the world, I see that for me, it does take a longer time, not only to create a painting, but we'll get into that, but also on monetizing the paintings themselves, because you are creating something that's coming out of your imagination or your own thirst of creativity, rather than creating something because people are demanding it. So I think that would be the first thing that I would ask myself. Do you want to create commissions, or do you want to work on your own pieces? And coming back to what you were saying about how to monetize your work and how to make a living as an artist, I feel there are a gazillion different ways to do it. And just to name a few, I think there is the gallery world, in case you are looking to be an artist represented by a gallery. Usually galleries will work in the sense of you creating a whole body of work, a theme, a whole exhibition and project with a lot of pieces in it. And then the gallery will have an art show whenever they do group shows, whenever they are part of fairs around the world. Usually in art fairs, the galleries usually take a big commission from your work, but then again, they're showcasing your work to a whole new world of people that might not be able to see your work if you are not represented by a gallery. Then you have online shops where you can create your own body of work or products based on your artwork and sell on pages like Etsy or Faire in the United States. So websites where people are coming because they know they can buy handmade things. And we can go in the whole rabbit hole of how much Etsy has changed throughout the years, but people come to Etsy, let's say, looking for a moon calendar. So maybe they don't know my work, but they know that in Etsy they'll find different artists that create moon calendars. And if I have an Etsy shop, they might stumble upon my work. So pages where people come to seek for art is another way. You as an artist can also buy a booth at different art shows and art fairs that are like Mocha, where artists like Fran Meneses or like Radia Radman usually have us buy a booth, and then you're paying for the booth, you're sharing your art. Another artist that's coming to mind is Molly Reader, who usually will pay for a booth in different art shows. And then, of course, you are investing that money, but then people are coming to buy handmade stuff. And there's also social media, like the work that I do. So you can sell your own work on your online shop, like myself. You can create products and sell them in physical stores that sell stationery or whatever it is that you're creating with your work, like apparel or whatever. And then you can also make a life as a full-time artist, not selling your work, but rather being someone that teaches art. You can teach from the educational world, like colleges, schools, or you could also host art workshops for the corporate world. You could host your own art workshops, which is something that I do. I love partnering up with apothecaries because my art is all about the energetics and the physicality of plants. So I sometimes do that. Sometimes I rent spaces and then host workshops there. So all of these to say there are a million ways of making a living as an artist. You can be an artist that's dedicated to, like Maria Contreras. She creates artwork for the New York Times. So she is commissioned by a magazine. You can be an artist that works with editorial. So then you are creating the artwork for books. So all of this to say there are so many ways to work as an artist. And I feel that sometimes in art school, at least when I went, none of these was touched based on. We had in my school not even one class that would focus on how to make a living as an artist. So I think it's also beautiful to look at what other artists are making, how they're making a living, and that can be inspiring because sometimes we are close to like, oh, it only needs to be inside a gallery. And it's like, no, there's like a zillion ways to do it. So I think that seeing other artists, whether that's on social media or out in the world, could also be a fun way to explore different ways of making money as an artist. So before I keep answering your questions, I just wanted to take a few seconds of your time to say thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. With Squarespace, you can create a beautiful design website or online store that showcases your brand and engages customers. With easy online payments and built-in tools for inventory, shipping, fulfillment, and so much more, you can simplify your workflow and give customers a seamless shopping experience. Squarespace and I are partnering up to offer you a 2-week free trial, and once you're ready to launch, you can use the code Caro Arevalo to get 10% of your first purchase of a website or domain with them. And now let's go back to our Q&A. So for the second question, I love this one. Detail versus time. When do you stop? That's my everyday question. So if you've been here for a minute, you might know that my work is very intricate. I do very tiny details on everything, and my paintings take a long time because of that and because I am a slow painter. So detail versus time, I have never, and I hope that I am never making paintings faster or with less detail because I'm trying to have work out the door faster. I have come to just be in peace with the fact that my paintings take forever, that I am a slow painter, and I am still like learning so much about when I say being a slow painter, it not being because I doubt next steps, but rather because I love creating details. What I do is to learn when to stop and learn when I've put in enough hours of work within one day. So nowadays around 6 or 7:30 p.m., whenever I'm having a painting day in the studio, I stop working at that time. I have embraced painting at night, and I usually around 6 or 7:30 p.m., I'm like, okay, it's time to close the studio, turn the lights off, get dinner, have time with my family, and be a human and not a art making robot. So For me, that is the marker. It's like, it's not that I am creating less details on my work, but I'm rather focusing on being more intentional with when I finish my workday. And just in the same way, I'm usually, if I'm having a day in my art studio, I'll try my best to start my day by 10 a.m. Sometimes it's in between 10, 10:30, 11, but that's the range in between the one I'm starting my workday and I stop for lunch. So I want to piggyback that answer with this question that says, what does a typical workday look like? What time do you get up? What's your morning routine like? Do you have any rituals before work? And how long is your lunch break, etc.? I love your videos. They bring me so much joy. Best regards from Germany. So I don't know how long you've been hanging out in this YouTube channel, but I do share a lot of videos that are like a day in the life or a week in the life as a full-time artist. I also have a bunch of morning routines and I'm always happy to create a new one. But all of that being said, my routine does shift a little bit throughout the seasons, and I feel like my rituals shift with me as well. And sometimes I'm super organized and I'm like following everything to the T. And then there's times when I get very unorganized and I need to like shumble everything and come back to my practice. I feel I say this in one of my reset routine videos from a couple of years ago, which is that I feel that part of the routine is to get out of the routine in order to then come back. Right now, my mornings have been starting around 6 a.m. Some days 6:30, some days 7, unless it's a day off. But my work days usually start at 6 a.m. I go to Pilates or work out at home or do a yoga session at home. And usually I do that from 7 to 8. And then in between 8 and 10, I am showering, getting ready, making breakfast. And as I was saying, it all depends on how much I organize myself. It is my ideal situation to, while my breakfast is cooking, I start getting everything prepped for lunch. So whether that is cutting the veggies or peeling things or grinding the spices or whatever. So then after lunch, I usually make myself a cup of tea or cacao or matcha or something and sit down, do my meditation, drink my cup of whatever hot drink I'm having. And from there, I usually transition to my art studio. So days in the studio do shift a lot. There's a lot of days where I am here from in between 10 and 11 a.m. until in between 6 and 7:30 p.m. It all depends also on what I'm doing that day. So a lot of days I am painting. A lot of days I'm doing computer work, whether that is answering to emails, sending invoices, paying things, editing videos, editing photos, creating the flyers for any workshops that I have coming up. And I cannot tell you how much time is involved in answering to emails, because everything that I'm planning needs to be planned ahead of time, whether that is creating a workshop in New York City or here in upstate New York, talking to a new venue, negotiating contracts with brands that I might be working with, getting new art supplies, sending invoices, paying things. I work with cacao, so maybe it's like, oh, I need to order more cacao, 1,000 things on the computer. Editing videos, it's also a lot of time, and I do all of that alone. Some days I'm packing orders, so it all depends on what I'm doing. This is not a question of all the different hats that I wear on the art studio, but rather a question on routines. So usually whatever work I'm doing is in between 10 a.m. and 7:30 p.m. And then I shut the door to my studio, I clock out, and then I am a person enjoying life with my husband and having our nighttime time together when he comes back from work. And I tend to take in between 15 minutes to 1 hour as a break for lunch. It all depends on how much time it takes me to make lunch, and I try to make fast things. It's not always the case, but I try to make it less than half an hour. It all depends on what I'm cooking and how much time it takes and how organized I was in the morning to leave things cooking. Today, I am not cooking because I have leftovers from yesterday. So probably my lunch break from today will be like 15-20 minutes. I'm just so excited to come back to the studio and keep working. And some days it looks like going out and teaching classes. So it all depends, but I do have a lot of rituals around my creativity. I actually have a course called Rituals Around Creativity, which in this course I share a lot of art practices that help me get inspired and reawaken that creative spark. But I also share a lot of the rituals that throughout the years have and keep inspiring and awakening my creativity as well. So that course is there. And for the last year, me and some beautiful teachers have been working on creating Rituals Around Creativity edition 2. And that will hopefully be coming out in the summertime of this year. So that's a little bit on that. And let's keep reading your questions. How do you continue to find interest and passion when working on a longer piece? I wear all the hats in my very teeny tiny small art business. So as I was saying, lots of time in the computer, lots of time teaching, lots of time doing whatever else that is not painting. So I feel that is what helps me sustain myself from my art, but at the same time, that is what really is making me so thirsty for the day that I can commit to just painting for the whole day, unplugging the Wi-Fi and being fully on the zone painting. So what I crave the most, what I'm the most thirsty of, is painting and being in the studio, and the research for each painting also takes a time. So that's also building up on how much I am looking forward to the days of painting. So I feel I've never gotten bored of a painting. What does happen to me is, for example, right now I have this painting with a jaguar. The jaguar is not even finished. And I have been working on a painting about plants from Palestine, which I have here in my desk. And I'm loving creating this painting about the plants of Palestine. At the same time, I cannot wait until that painting is finished so I can come back to my painting of the jaguar that's behind me. And then on the other wall, I have my painting on the eukaryotic beings, which I haven't touched for probably a year. So I'm always just seeing this unfinished work and feeling so excited because I have plans for so many paintings that I want to create. I want to make a painting on medicinal plants from Peru, and I haven't working on that just yet. So they are on the list, and it's a very big wish list. So I feel just wearing so many hats, and for some of you, it might be not wearing a lot of hats in your art, but maybe it is going to school, maybe it is working on other job, and then whenever you have free time from that other job, coming to sit down and paint. So I feel that all that time that we are not investing in actually sitting down and painting or whatever creative thing you do is so inspiring to then when we actually have the time really be like, okay, I'm here, it's time, and then you just go into it. So for me, it's the thirst that it's built around waiting for the moment whenever you can do that. Next question. Before creating a painting, do you feel anxious or nervous? Do you have any pre-painting rituals that you do to align with the work? So the second part of the question, I feel I already answered, saying that I have a lot of pre-painting rituals. And just to name a few, as I was sharing, I meditate in the mornings. I feel that working out, whether that is Pilates or yoga or strength training, it just gets me right in my mind and present in my body. And I love to commune with plants and have a tea. So sitting down in silence with a tea, or I live in the Hudson Valley. So I am in a little valley. I'm next to the creeks and the mountains. So going for a 20-minute hike is so inspiring to me. And I have a lot of rituals around cacao circles, breath work, sound meditations, etc. And as I was saying, I share a lot on that on Rituals Around Creativity, and I'll be sharing more on my Earth Connection rituals in my upcoming course. And coming back to the first part of the question, do you feel anxious or nervous? Just a little bit. I try to remind myself that if I start a painting and I feel this painting sucks, it's so horrible, there's more paper. So I buy my watercolor paper on roll, and I'm like, okay, if this 30 by 30 inch painting is not looking the way that I want it to look, it's fine, because this is just another stepping stone for me to get into the painting that is the painting that I'll be very happy with. So I'm like, you know what? It's paper. It's just paper. Of course, I'm not trying to toss a lot of paper. So I feel it's very rare that I have started and then I've tossed a painting, but I just like to keep that in mind and remind myself, like, it's just paper. If you don't like it, you can start again. Every no is a step closer to the yes painting that I really want to create. So I feel that it's all about trial and error and reminding that it's just a game. It's about having fun. It's not about having an amazing masterpiece. I feel the masterpiece comes when I feel relaxed. And something that also helps me take away that anxious feeling is not only the rituals, but also I feel that whenever we are creating, it's not just me in my mind, the one that's painting, but the more and more the time passes and the years go by and I keep devoted to my practice, the more that I feel that artwork is not just coming from me, but it's rather coming from the universe, from the creative muse, from a co-creation with the natural world. So I feel that that helps take away the pressure of you need to do great, but it's rather like, here I am co-creating with the unseen and with the energetics of the plants and the energetics of nature and the creative muse. So let's just make time for all of us to play together. And that is a perspective that helps me keep it playful and light and not so focused on whether it will be beautiful or it will suck. Next question. What are the professional pathways for monetizing botanical and cellular illustration? And can developing expertise in this style lead to a sustainable career? I love this question. I know that the work that I do is not 100% scientific. It is inspired in bioart and it is inspired in scientific illustration, but probably my proportions are not correct. So for scientific illustration, that's something that artists really keep in mind. And it is my dream to one day be able to afford to take a scientific illustration master course like an MBA or and I have a few schools that I already have in mind. What I know from botanical illustrators or scientific illustrators is that one of the main ways and the ones they create income is through commission pieces, whether these are commission pieces by botanical or botanic gardens, aquariums, zoos, or anywhere where they have flora, fauna, and fungi present. This could also look like commissions from scientific magazines, botanical magazines, gardening magazines, gardening brands that sell seeds or any other products, and the ones they need depiction art from specific plants or fungi or whatever. And this could also be through creating illustrations for books related to these topics. Of course, a lot of artists in the botanical or scientific illustration world also dedicate themselves to teaching. And one artist that's coming to mind within this field is Zoe Keller. Zoe is actually from Woodstock, where I live, and Zoe's work is just absolutely amazing. I know that Zoe has not studied scientific illustration, but Zoe is one of the artists that I'm just like, the work that Zoe creates and the way that Zoe depicts nature is such mesmerizing, accurate, scientific illustration work, which is I, up until today, haven't worked with a botanic or botanical garden. I hope to do that one day. I have gone to botanical gardens in order to make research at the herbarium and fungariums, but those are some ways that it's coming up to me. Thank you for asking these because, okay, next question. In the beginning of your art journey, did you knew YouTube would help you manage your monthly experiences more than selling print and making commissions and murals? If you were starting right now and YouTube wasn't an option, how will you manage the entrepreneurship? How did you found your clients back then? The giraffe mural, the big wildcats painting, etc. Back then, I remember how tight you were with decision making about money. Are you the same now, or do you use help or a platform so you know when you can afford a ticket to Lima or you have to eat only quinoa this month? No, in the beginning of my journey, I didn't know that YouTube would be a way of making income. I think I've shared this 1,000 times by now, but I was working in the restaurant industry and I was painting my ass off all my free time. And I wanted a different creative outlet besides painting. So, those creative juices could keep expanding. What if that creative outlet that I start investing hours into is learning how to make videos? So I had a phone and I was like, let me film my art studio with my phone. Let me learn on YouTube how to edit a video. I started YouTube by an accident. I uploaded that video and some people were on Instagram asking me like, oh, your studio is so cool. Can we see more of it? So I would just start sharing that link because that video was there. And months later, I go into YouTube to work out and I came and I realized I had, I believe, 7 or 12,000 followers from that video that somehow went viral. This was by accident. That was mere luck. I didn't follow any trends or took any classes or used any hashtag. That video went viral and I think it has over 2 million views nowadays. And it went viral by mere luck. And I am so thankful that that happened because that was a breakthrough for my art. And from there, people started seeing my work. And from there, I grew a YouTube channel. So this was all by luck. I create what resonates with me. I create the content that I want to see and what feels very authentic to my art and to my heart. Thanks to the income that I make in the different ways that I share my art online and in person are what make me capable of living as an artist. This person asked if I had any help, and I don't have any financial help from anybody. Actually, me and my husband help some of our family in their living situation, etc. So thankfully, since 2020, I've been able to have savings for the first time in my life. And I never see it as like, oh, am I able to splurge in a trip to Peru? It's rather like, last year, I haven't spent Christmas with my mom in 13 years. I need to be able to make that happen, So it's always like that. It's always like coming from a place of these feels very important. So I need to find a way to make this happen. I thankfully now have savings and still like it's this very interesting in between because I have savings and I've had them for 6 years now, which feels like so new to me. In my mind, I feel I'm slowly learning to feel secure in the fact that I can provide for myself. And I've been doing that since I moved out of my mom's house. And I'm like, okay, Caro, if you figure it out up until now, you'll be able to figure it out, whether that is through making art or learning new tools. If the artwork doesn't work at one point, and I don't know, I need to find a different job, a 9 to 5 or whatever it is, I know I'll be able to hopefully make a living for myself. But at the same time, I cannot afford healthcare. You know what I mean? So it is this funny in between of like, I can have savings that are helping me to be able to not only eat quinoa for a whole week and pay for groceries without having to check my bank account, which feels amazing. And I'm so grateful, and I couldn't ask for more. At the same time, I cannot afford healthcare and I cannot afford to own property, but that's probably most of us. So I'm just learning how to be okay with that. When I was younger, I thought that I needed to own my house, and I had all these things in mind that I had to do. And don't get me wrong, I would love to one day be able to afford to own my house and steward to land, but I'm also learning how to be okay with that not being my reality and appreciating absolutely everything that I have, while still, trying to get better at my work and trying to get better at my art and trying to get better at what I put out in the world in order to share more creativity, but at the same time make a better earning for me and for my family. And we'll see how it goes. But yes, so no help money-wise whatsoever, and no help with organization or anything else. everything that you see me putting out in the world, it's 100% me. That actually makes me very proud of myself, knowing that I can show up to what needs to be done. And I do have help, as in I have an accountant that I work with to make my taxes so I don't go to jail. I have help in the sense that my husband pays for 50% of everything that we share in our house. And I have help in the sense that I have an amazing group of friends that are there with me when I need support in needing a shoulder, when I doubt myself, in helping me celebrate my achievements. And I have help from the people that follow my work and are here supporting with whatever it is, whether it is help in supporting me on Patreon, on buying something from my art, on buying an online course, coming to one of my gatherings, liking a photo, sharing a video, giving this video a thumbs up, like everything helps. And I feel that the help that I have is that somehow I magically was able to build a community of people, and that also inspires me to keep growing and sharing and creating things that are always better than what I shared before. And I have dreams, like if I am one thing, it's a big dreamer, and my dreams are to make art that it's better, get better at my painting, get better at my drawing, get better as an artist, get better as a video editor, get better as someone that speaks in a language that is not her native language. So all the things. And I'm just hopeful, and I am putting in the work. And I feel those are the tools that make the big difference. I feel I've gone through a rabbit hole. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. Like, what was the question? How did you find your first clients back then? Actually, it's always been luck. Sometimes it's been friends of friends. The giraffe mural was commissioned by a friend of mine. She used to be a bartender in the same restaurant that I work, and she wanted a giraffe in her house, so I painted that, So I also painted the mural in a beautiful yoga studio in Rockaway Beach, and that was because the person that ran this yoga studio found me. I went to Rockaway for a few days, and I tagged a post that I shared on Instagram with the location Rockaway. And she was on Instagram looking at what people are tagging in Rockaway. She saw my work and she commissioned a mural. So things like that, like all just random / serendipitous things. So I don't know if my answers are too abstract. I hope they're not. Anyways, last part of these questions. If you were starting right now and YouTube wasn't an option, how would you manage the entrepreneurship? I feel that I would manage it the same way that I do, open and looking for new opportunities. Like a few years ago, I started sharing watercolor classes at a hotel in the area where I live. I now have a monthly cacao circle that I guide in a location nearby. I am sharing classes at a seed company. So I'm always like, hi, do you want to partner up? Like, do you want to work together? And I'm always open to opportunities. Last year, I made the illustrations for a book, which was so fun. Long story short, my illustrations are not going to be part of that book anymore because the editorial didn't like them as much as the writer did. But anyways, I'm always open, and there's a lot of projects that a lot of us work on and never see the day of light because things like what happened with the book happened, but that's part of it, I'm always just curious and open to find new ways to share what I do and to keep getting better at it. But sorry, that was a very long question and I gave an even longer reply. And here I have two questions that I think go hand in hand. Hello, I wanted to ask, do you stick to a schedule when it comes to working on your art, or do you work when motivation hits? How do you stay motivated to finish a piece? Also, your art is beautiful and I'm infinitely glad you shared with us all on YouTube. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here And I wanted to piggyback that question with, how do you find consistency in making art? It also says, how do you plan out your drawings? And I also kind of think it goes with this one. How do you make art an everyday part of your life and beat resistance? So I never rely on motivation. I think I would be stabbing myself in the back if I would be doing that, because motivation is very tricky and it doesn't come as often as I would need it to appear for me to be able to be making enough art and making, I believe, a living out of it. So I am a big believer in organization and structure come first, motivation comes second. I don't subscribe to the idea of not making time in our days for creativity, but rather just accommodating whenever inspiration or motivation appears. Because I believe that motivation and inspiration come when we are giving it space to come. So even if I am unsure of painting, I never not have a theme of something that I want to work on. But I had a time when I didn't, and I didn't have a creative language figure out, and I was still like, oh, I want to create, but I'm not sure what. I feel that sitting down and making something is way better than watching TV waiting for creativity to appear, because I feel it's a co-creation. And I really subscribe to the idea shared by Rick Rubin in the book The Creative Act and by Elizabeth Gilbert on Big Magic. I believe that art is a co-creation with the universe or the creative muse. And as Elizabeth says in Big Magic, I love this perspective of creative ideas being little fairy spirits flying in the air. And whenever they see a human that can translate their creative spark into actual artwork through their hands, through their instruments, through their words, or whatever it is, they are checking us out. You know, they're like, what is this person doing? Oh, I see. They are committed to their work. They are committed to once a week sitting down in a desk or on top of their bed or wherever it is, the kitchen table, and writing, painting, cooking, making music, playing around, getting curious, open, you know. And whenever those creative ideas are checking us out, they're like, I want to co-create with these humans because they are committed. They are showing up, they are putting in the hours, and they're open to the playfulness that creativity entails and to the mystery that it entails. So I truly believe that. And it's something that I've believed before even reading Elizabeth's book. And I do think that it's all about calling in that creative idea and being like, I'm here, I'm ready, let's do something, you know, let's co-create. Whether you think of that as God or the universe or the creative muse, I also see it as the energetics of plants. I sometimes, before painting, I tell the plants, I speak out loud and I say, I'm here. Like, what do you want me to paint? Like, use me. I am a platform. What do you want? What stories do you want to tell? Show me by getting me curious about a specific plant, by showing me a dream, by having someone repeat the name of a specific plant or fungi around me. Like, help me get to where you want me to be so then we can co-create this. So I'm getting very poetic, but that's what I subscribe to. I subscribe to the belief that organizing ourselves and really committing to creativity is what matters the most, and motivation and inspiration will come second. Believe me, especially with the state of the world, sometimes I feel very unmotivated. I'm like, what am I even doing? I'm doing my silly paintings, and World War III has started 6 years ago, and you know, the world's ending and everything's on fire. So I have a couple of videos that are speaking about that specifically. So I'm not going to go there because that would last like 1,000 hours. But yeah, I believe that's so important to be like, I'm going to go through my non-inspiring feelings right now. And something that I do plan for is, let's say, of course, I have feelings. I'm days where I doubt. I have days where I feel I don't have any creative energy to paint. There's days where I'm feeling sad or nervous or anxious or angry or depressed or with my period, with low energy. There's so many days that are not ideal for painting. So those days I'll do something else. I'll clean my studio. I'll pack orders. I'll order whatever I need that I need for my shipping. I will try to print something I've been putting off. I'm going to make the scientific key for something. Oh, okay, I'm not inspired to create. Then maybe I'll start doing the research for my next painting and collecting the images, or going on a hike. I feel that part of the way that I've been really reshaping how I feel is productive is time resting is also important, and it's part of my creative journey. Going for a hike is part of my creative journey. Sitting down in meditation with a plant is creative building. So that's also helped a lot with the unmotivated, uninspired days where I'm like, then part of the creativity job today is not to paint, but it's rather to remove the blockages that are not helping me feel inspired. And I'm just going to end it here for this question. I truly believe that creativity is an act of hope. It's an act of joy. It's an act of resistance, and it's an innate human act. So anytime that I'm like, why should I create when the world is ending? I'm like, because we came to this world to experience joy. We came to this world to share our creative spark. And I don't want to just consume horrible news all day and then feel depleted. I want to also take back my focus, and I want to take back my intentionality, and I want to create because that reminds me and hopefully others that there is so much beauty in the world, including creating something with our hands. So I feel this video might be like 1,000 hours. So I'm just going to end with one more question. Suggestions for eco-friendly watercolor inks or gouache. I have a video on this, and it's a video that's probably 1 or 2 years old, but my art supplies have not changed. So I'm going to link that video on this video's description, but to make it short, I use Case for Making watercolors that come in pans. I also use the Art of Soil watercolors. The Art of Soil I mainly use for workshops that I teach. Case for Making, I use them for my own paintings. A note here, Case for Making has synthetic watercolors, so I don't buy a whole pan of watercolors. I rather buy each of them individually, and I create my earth pigment / mineral pigment watercolor palette like that. And it is quite expensive, but I haven't had to buy new paintings in, I want to say, 2 years. I recently got new colors because, as you may see, most of these are almost done. So it is expensive, but it's so pigmented, it lasts a very long time. Art of Soil is a little bit more affordable, and theme paints. And those are my suggestions. I go down the rabbit hole of eco-friendly, sustainable art supplies on this video that I'm mentioning. So make sure to check that out for whoever asked these. There are 1,000 more questions, but let me know if you want to see another Q&A soon so I can work on that with the rest of the questions. And if you have more questions, you can drop them on this video's comments. And the next time that I work on a Q&A, I'll make sure to check those out. Thank you for being here and hearing me ramble and go down the rabbit hole and get poetic and also get existential. I hope this was inspiring or productive or educational. And thank you for being here. Thank you, Squarespace, for sponsoring this video. And I'll see you with a new video in 2 weeks. Until then, goodbye.